Amy sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the small window of her hut. The village outside was alive with its usual rhythm, the sound of voices and work filling the air. Yet despite the warmth of the sun pouring in, Amy felt cold inside. She hadn't seen Golden Heart since their last conversation. That feeling of regret had stayed with her like an itch she couldn't scratch, gnawing at her whenever she allowed herself to think about him, about what she had said. But she had made a decision. She would avoid him. It was easier that way, easier to put distance between herself and the strange emotions swirling around whenever he was near. Amy wasn't used to this, wasn't used to someone trying to reach her in that gentle, patient way. She was used to being strong, independent, relying on others, letting someone in. That was dangerous. And Golden Heart, he was dangerous. Not in the way enemies were, but in the way that made her walls feel shaky. It had been days since their last encounter, and she had made sure to keep herself busy. She would take long walks on the outskirts of the village, find any task to keep her hands occupied, or work on fixing things around the village that didn't even need fixing. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling of his presence, lingering in her mind like a soft melody she couldn't forget. One afternoon, as Amy made her way through the village square, she overheard some of the other villagers talking.
That new guy, Golden Heart, he's really something, isn't he?
Amy froze mid-step, the familiar name pulling her into their conversation despite herself. She glanced over, trying to act casual, as the group of villagers stood by, chatting near a fruit stand.
Yeah, he's been helping out a lot.
Another voice chimed in.
Did you see him this morning? He fixed old Marlin's roof. Took him barely any time at all.
I heard he also helped with the irrigation system by the fields.
A third villager added.
Seems like he's good at just about everything.
Amy's heart sank. Golden Heart had been busy helping everyone in the village, it seemed. A part of her wasn't surprised. He had that energy about him, that need to do good, to be useful. And for some reason, that only made the knot in her stomach tighten. She didn't want to think about it. She didn't want to think about him. But their words kept pulling her in.
You know,
one of the villagers said.
He was asking about Amy the other day.
Her breath caught in her throat.
Really?
Another voice asked.
What for?
Said he wanted to know if she needed any help with repairs. Said he hadn't seen her around lately.
Amy clenched her fists, a mix of frustration and something else, something unfamiliar welling up inside her. She had been avoiding him on purpose, and yet he had noticed her absence. Why did that bother her so much? Why couldn't she just let it go? The conversation around her continued, but Amy couldn't listen anymore. She quickly turned and walked away. Her pace hurried as if she could outrun the thoughts that were chasing her. That evening, Amy sat alone by the cliffs on the far side of the village, watching the waves crash against the rocks below. The sound of the ocean usually calmed her, but tonight it felt like the storm outside was reflecting the one inside her. She thought about everything the villagers had said. Golden Heart had been helping everyone. He had been kind, selfless, and he had noticed she wasn't around. That last part gnawed at her the most. Amy wrapped her arms around her knees, drawing them close to her chest. Why did it matter? Why did he matter? He was just some guy, someone passing through. But no matter how much she tried to convince herself of that, the truth felt harder to ignore with each passing day. The truth that maybe she had been too harsh, that maybe she regretted pushing him away. Her heart felt heavy, tangled in a mess of emotions she couldn't untangle. She hadn't let anyone in for so long, hadn't trusted anyone enough to even try. And here he was, offering something she didn't even know how to accept. But she wasn't ready. Amy sighed, resting her chin on her knees. She wasn't ready to trust anyone, not yet. But there was something inside her, a small nagging feeling that told her she had been wrong. Maybe not completely wrong, but harsh. And now, with each day that passed, it felt like she was running from something she couldn't escape. Something inside her, not just him. Golden Heart wasn't the problem. He was just different. Different from what she was used to. She had been avoiding him, avoiding the emotions he stirred up in her. But in doing so, she had only created more distance between herself and the truth. The truth that maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to be alone forever. Back in the village, Golden Heart stood outside his hut, looking up at the stars. He hadn't seen Amy for days now, and though he had tried to give her space, he couldn't help but wonder if she was okay. He could feel it, that same sense of something unresolved between them. But he knew better than to push. Amy was strong, independent, and fiercely guarded. He respected that, but part of him couldn't help but hope that one day she would let him in. For now he would wait. Quietly, patiently, he would be there, just like the stars above, constant and unwavering. Amy, sitting alone by the cliffs, closed her eyes. She wasn't ready to face him yet, but deep down she knew she couldn't avoid him forever. And perhaps, when the time was right, she would find the courage to face the feelings she had been running from all along.